So welcome everyone to our online webinar on Sargassum valorization in West Africa. I'm Melanie Kreff, I'm the Scientific Officer of the Global Seaweed Coalition. And on the behalf of the coalition, we are pleased to introduce two solutions today from Cabo Verde and Ghana that focus on Sargassum valorization into biostimulant and biomaterial. We chose to select those solutions because they are practical, replicable, and offer a strong potential for further development. Indeed, since 2011, massive influx of sargassum resulted over millions of seaweed washing ashore on both sides of the Atlantic. These events have caused damage to coastal ecosystem and coastal communities. While countries along the Western Africa have developed solutions with governance, valorization solution, and monitoring solution, very little is still known about what's happening in West Africa that is also heavily affected. In fact, while we were preparing this report, we didn't encounter an overview report to set the situation in West Africa, mentioning a research gap there where only silo projects are developed. But first, I will introduce and give a few words about the Global Seaweed Coalition. We are a global partnership established to support the sustainable development of the seaweed sectors grounded in science. We do this through our 4 action pillars: science, policy, advocacy, and funding. We provided grants to seaweed-based projects through call for proposal. We spread the seaweed narrative in global and local forums. We try to influence policy change, and the coalition was launched in 2021. It's now hosted at the Foundation CNRS and get the financial support from United Nations Global Compact, CNRS, and Builders Vision. So we have delivered more than 2 million to seaweed-based projects in 32 different countries, and we will try to secure more funds to continue those calls for proposal and support seaweed-based projects. Focusing on our science and technology pillar now, so we gather a scientific council of 15 independent academicians, each of them having their expertise in international research institutions. The GRLC is a trusted organization working to highlight research gap and to debunk the hype about seaweed. We organize workshops and webinars such as this one, and you can find all the material online, either through our YouTube channel or under the resource tab in our website for reports, because those webinars lead to research consortia, working groups, and policy papers. On the policy front, the Global Seaweed Coalition is a founding member of the United Nations Global Seaweed Initiative that now gathers more than 8 countries, including Madagascar, France, Indonesia, Chile, Brazil, Senegal, Belize, and Korea. Other UN agencies are supporting this initiative, and each of them bring their expertise to bring the mission of the coalition to the next level, now involving governments. And last but not least, GSC is a member-driven organization, and we like to gather the entire seaweed value chains from smallholder to multinational businesses, research institutions, and also civil society. You can become a member. It's free of charge, and I'm sure Azedine will share the link of our Ubuntu platform in the chat. Now on today's agenda, so we will have an introduction by a representative based in the Caribbean, because we think that initiative led in the Caribbean can inspire and serve to West Africa. So Lydia Barfleur from region Guadeloupe will introduce the Sarcoup Project 1 and 2 and the deliverables behind it. Anne-Laure François will introduce the ongoing SARCI project that's working to build regional coordination and governance in the Caribbean. And Professor Ligia Collado will give a general overview of the Sargassum situation with observation on West Africa. We will then move to our solutions. So first, EcoCV, an NGO based in Cabo Verde, in collaboration with the University of York, will introduce how they valorize sargassum in biostimulant and how they managed to remove the arsenic out of this sargassum, or at least a glance. And we believe it's an interesting case study for other small islands. And then OIC International will showcase biostimulant solution and biomaterial application that they have developed in Ghana in partnership with the Water Research Institute running the analysis. Each presentation will last about 20 minutes, followed by 10 minutes of questions. So throughout the discussion, please feel free to raise your question in the chat. We will answer them during the Q&A session. And with this in mind, I wish you a very pleasant webinar. I hope you get some interesting insight out of it. And I will give the floor to Miss Lydia Barfleur, that I'm looking in my screen. Lydia, are you there? Yeah. Okay, but it's okay. We're going to move directly to Expertise France with Anne-Laure. If you can take the floor, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear us?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a real pleasure to introduce you the SARC project, Sargassum Regional Strategies for Ecosystem-Based Action. So, as you already said, since 2011, Caribbean islands and certain Central American countries, including Mexico and Belize, have been experiencing massive accumulations of Sargassum seaweed on their coasts. Negative impact on environment, local economies, and on health. Tourism and fishing sectors are the most affected. To address this phenomenon, several national and regional initiatives have been developing management strategies and methods for collecting and using sargassum biomass, in transforming it into marketable products like organic fertilizer, livestock feed, bioplastics, building materials, and biofuels. However, this algae often contains heavy metals, making their use risky for human and animal health and ecosystems. The high cost and technical complexity of decontamination currently exceeds the capabilities of private and public actors, requiring more coordinated planning and mobilization to manage the entire life cycle of sargassum, from collection to treatment and storage. At COP28, France announced the launch of the International Sargassum Initiatives with support from the Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, Mexico, and the OECS. The aim was to mobilize the international community and coordinate the protection of marine environment through various forums and conventions, including the Cartagena Convention. In this context, France, through Agence Française de Développement, decided to finance an 8 million project to provide a regional response to the sargassum phenomenon by strengthening coordination between affected countries and promoting the creation of structured sargassum value chain in the Caribbean. So SARC is a 4-year project. It begins in 2025 and it ends in 2028. The aim of the project is to minimize and limit the negative impacts of sargassum stranding on local economies, communities, and coastal ecosystems. It is founded by France, implemented by Expertise France in collaboration with the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS Commission. It is an 8 million US project implemented in 4 member states of the OECS: Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. Regional workshop, exchange of best practices, and scientific research will also be developed in Belize, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Guadeloupe, and Martinique. The project has 3 main components and 1 cross-cutting component. The first one is to strengthen regional cooperation and raising international awareness on this issue. The second one is to support the member states in the implementation of integrated sargassum management. The third one is to promote regional scientific cooperation. There is also a cross-cutting component, which is the gender. In practical terms, SASI will support integrated national sargassum management strategies, strengthen multi-country early warning systems, contribute to data sharing and decision support tools, and support applied research and innovation in collaboration with research institutions. The project also promotes sustainable and environmentally sound valorization pathways while ensuring alignment with biodiversity objectives. That's why we have a call for proposal who will end, I think it's at mid of May, right? Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm available for any question.
Thank you very much, Anne-Laure. So it's very good that there is open call for proposals still ongoing. So if some people in attending have project to suggest, we encourage you to connect with Anne-Laure. Then, as I don't see Lydia connected, Ligia, you can be the next one in introducing the Sargassum overall situation with observation in West Africa.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you see the presentation? Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation, and it's an honor. And I want to be sure everybody understands I am a phycologist. I work with algae. I work in the Caribbean, and I'm trying to do some observations based on literature research and some interviews with people that I know around the place. So I'm going to be talking about what is the general situation, and because everybody knows what's going on with Sargassum, I am going to be putting much more emphasis on the very recent advances and more into how we can collaborate. We know that algal blooms are increasing all over the place. It's not only Sargassum, but really Sargassum is becoming the one that is almost permanent, lasting for more than 10 years, and is increasing in its dimension. So from all of our previous and very problematic macroalgal blooms, such as Caulerpa taxifolia, Sargassum is by no means the biggest one. And since the beginning, we know that Sargassum has been increasing. It's lasting for a long time. Last year was a terrible year with more than 31 million tons, and this year we are projecting, based on the USF program from Dr. Chong Min-Hu, more than 118 million tons. We are already in May above the 34 million tons of Sargassum. So we're talking about humongous amounts of biomass. The working hypothesis proposed by Jones in 2020 in terms of triggers and trends, and then we will go ahead with the perseverance later on, is that related with climate change and anomaly in the North Atlantic Oscillation allowed some pieces of the Sargasso Sea that is constrained by the Gulf Stream to expand and somehow release and get trapped into the Canary Current, eventually reaching the North Equatorial Current. And in this area of the Atlantic, it found perfect conditions in terms of temperature, nutrients, movement of the water, and eventually created in what we know now as the Great Sargassum Belt of the Atlantic. And this one is feeding all of the Caribbean, Central America, and going and even feeding the Sargasso Sea again. So this has been our working hypothesis for several years. Very recently this year, studying and trying to find the origin of the sources of the Great Sargassum Belt, Verde and collaborators in 2026, just January this year, published a very interesting study using Bayesian, and I'm not going to explain the whole oceanography because I am not, but just to make sure everybody understands, they make a study going backwards in time and trying to find what are the probabilities to have the Sargasso Sea as the main source of origin, and this A is the origin, B is the ending point, and in the left hand you see if they test for the Sargasso Sea to be the source of origin or to have the Gulf of Guinea as the source of origin. And very clearly, their study is showing that a potential source for the origin of the Sargassum Sea, the Great Sargassum Belt, might be coming from the Gulf of Guinea. And in the bottom line here, in the bottom graphs, they do this analysis for 1 year in the left and for two years, lapsing the study, the analysis of the data. And in both, the gray areas are the potential areas of origin. And in the very dark, the darker the color, the higher the likelihood that this is the place where the origin is. So I have so many questions, but some of them is that we need to analyze the perspective of all the connectivity that we have now in the whole Atlantic. So we need to work both sides of the Atlantic, oceanography, physiology, and taxonomy together, because we're talking about, and please, I want to be clear, something is the origin and something different is the conditions. The conditions in the oceans are related to the whole Atlantic dynamics. So in terms of taxonomy, studies in Sicily in 2017, they show that it's very difficult to identify and separate the species from those that are attached in the bottom from those that are floating, fluitants, natans. They are very similar to many benthic species, three that I tell you in other phylogenetic studies. In the previous one, they use a marker. In the second one, other two markers. They are starting to see some difference, but at least in natans and fluitants, they couldn't make the difference between the two natans species. In a recent study by Tomasetti et al., we are analyzing the biodiversity of algae in all of the planet, and we know that we have 350-something species accepted taxonomically. At the whole globe, Sargassum is a genus that is wide distributed all around. We have 6,651 entries per locality, and you can see in the diversity, the Atlantic is more or less diverse compared with other areas in the Pacific area. For the Western Africa, yes, we see, and the colors are not exact, these are a scale just for Africa, so you can see the highest diversity is going to be up north and lower diversity, but we do have fluitants and natans reported in so many studies for the Gulf of Guinea. In terms of physiology, I don't have the time. We have done a lot of advances. We understand the limits in temperature, what a species like it warm and what is not. So we know the impact of nutrients. There is still a lot of studies going on to see what might be the saturation and responses to nutrients to the Saharan dust. So we know much more than in 2011, but at the same time, we have many questions. Each one of these lines represent a morphotype, and the multifactorial, we need to understand how these elements combined are going to be working. So this is a very general idea. And the other thing that I want to bring to the table is, so something is the origin in the coast, and then how this massive bloom is going to be moving in the ocean or growing in the ocean. Remember, phytoplankton is what we usually find in the oceans, and they are responsible for half of the net primary productivity of the planet. Is really, really, really important. And understand that it's going to be a very complex set of elements, nutrients, stratification. So phytoplankton is floating. If you have an stratification, because we have the climate change, only with vertical mixing, they can get the nutrients again. Macroalgal blooms, now in this case the Sargasso, is competing with the phytoplankton in the middle of the oceans. But there is facility, so Sargassum is very good with the temperature and nutrients, and there is something new that we are finding is that in the blades, in the leaves, if you will, of the Sargassum, there is a strong microfilm, and of course other things are going to get attached like bioplastics, etc. But they have bacteria that fix nitrogen from the atmosphere. That means they have their own fertilizing fabric within them. So they are strong competitors just by themselves. So we have a potential regime shift favoring macroalgae and some particular species of phytoplankton. And this is something that we need to work together, west and east. Okay. So very quickly, moving to West Africa, these are based on studies of your own colleagues, and this is showing that all of the countries that are being affected, impacted by the sargassum. So it's not only that they have always had the sargassum there, but some conditions in the general planet is also impacting the West Africa. And I'm not going to, I thought our previous colleagues were going to talk, but the general impacts very similar from what we are experiencing in the Caribbean: economic losses, ecological impacts, health impacts, and breaking a lot of the fabric of the social fabric, because many of our countries depend on the tourism, and people that are fishers, they are really impacted as well. So it's not only the tourists. I want to make really a strong impact on the people living in the places. General people are very impacted, as we can see in Guadeloupe. Some schools have to be evacuated, etc. Some studies also are showing that in the North Africa also they have very large amount of annual accumulation of sargassum. So it's a very similar. I could be giving this talk related with the Caribbean, but this is for the West Africa. So the lessons that West Africa want to learn, implement, and collaborate with the Caribbean expertise is exactly the similar detections of monitoring. We know that we need to have collaboration between people working in satellite, aerial, citizen science is very important, and field observations to be able to create a forecast for managers and everybody. Mechanical removal, we also have advanced a lot in the Caribbean, in Mexico, well, Mexican Caribbean, the Great Caribbean, if you will, with many tools that are working, others failing. Within the Caribbean, we still need much more communication, and we can use that challenge to include West Africa. Of course, with the valorization, we're going to hear more. From harvest to distribution, the supply chain is a challenge for all of us. So the lessons learned along the 15 years have not to be, they don't need to be reinvented. We need to create working groups together, monitoring with monitoring, managers with manager, bring managers from other places, and of course support research. But I think we need to support managers. We need to create those working groups. We need to derive some of our fundings to support the people to learn lessons learned in the field, those that are in the field working with the problem itself. You can use our SARCnet discussion forum. At the end, I can show you, you can just email me. And this is something that we could start with, map the stakeholders in both sides of the Caribbean so we can put together those working groups. I want to leave you with a message that, yes, we're finding different sources of origin and we need to work in the taxonomy, physiology, oceanography, but this is a symptom of a planetary problem. We are living in a massive extractive lifestyle. The loss of biodiversity, climate change, nutrients, all of that together is working and driving us towards a potential ocean regime shift. And this is not a crisis any longer. This is a way of living. This is the way we are living, and we need to create a new way of working towards this. Analyze seaweed-based solutions need to be taking the potential ecological consequences. Sinking sargassum might create a very long-term problem. So short, mid, and long-term consequences need to be taken into account. Investors, please, we are talking about the Caribbean, we're talking about the West Africa. We need to have the community engagement. It's not only, again, a place where we can go and extract resources. We need to, we have an opportunity for justice, equity, and peace. And we need to create an international sargassum panel for the research, equivalent to the IPCC. I am trying to say, everybody who has the ability to find resources, let's create this panel. And I just created this acronym, ISP remove, but you can do whatever you want. And we have this great opportunity to empower locals using the wonderful best organism in the planet, the algae. Science diplomacy can be one of our tools to develop this kind of international panel. And with that, I leave you. I hope I didn't extend too much, Melanie. If you want to join the Sargassum International Forum SARCnet, please email me or Dr. Robert Tomasetti. Thank you. With that, I leave you. And I'm trying to find where to stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Ligia, for this general overview and for sharing your expertise from Florida. We know you have a very good overview there, and I'm sure a lot I've learned from your speech. Now we are a bit running out of time, but Lydia, I see you managed to join to give a snapshot on the deliverable of the two SARCOP projects. So if you can shorten your speech so we keep track.
Okay. Many thanks and sorry for the delay. I had some connection difficulties. I'm just going to share my screen and I will, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, you can see my screen. Okay. So I'm not going to make maybe a very detailed presentation of SARCOP 2 because time is quite short. But just to let you know that this is a cooperation program on Sargassum among the Caribbean. And you can see the slide? You can see it? Yeah, okay.
We see the first slide.
Okay, and the aim of this program, in fact, is to co-design or to build collaborative governance driven by synergy among some partners of the SARCOP program. So this is a program which is structured through intersectoral partnership around 6 work packages. And it's a 3 years program with a total budget of about 5 million. And we tried to build this program in order to reinforce regional cooperation, to integrate local, national, and regional expertise on Sargassum, and to share, in fact, tools, data, and best practice. So this is the main focus and main aim of the program. So this is a multi-partner project. We have about 22 projects, and some of our partners are around the table for this webinar, thinking about ADEM, but thinking also about, well, Global Seaweed Coalition, of course. And we had established a specific memorandum of understanding with Expertise France, which is leading a cooperation project with the OECS on Sargassum issue. So I was telling you that this is a project which is broken into 6 work packages. So we are going to address the question of the cluster, which is in fact a network of Sargassum actors organized through the quintuple hélice. We have the work package on collection, storage, and valorization, where we're going to seek how to improve collection, storage, and valorization, how to conduct technical studies in order to follow knowledge transfer between countries. And this is a very important work package, which is led by ADEM and Intect from the Dominican Republic. And we have a work package on observation and forecasting, as well as a work package on effect and impacts. Effect and impacts is quite very important from the French point of view in the Caribbean with regard with Sargassum, because it's quite, we are going to emphasize the question of health impact, but also the question of environmental and economic impact. And as Ligia was saying, we have some issue down in Guadeloupe, because we have sometimes to close some schools when they are heavily impacted by Sargassum influx. We're working on a setting up of a Caribbean air quality sensor network with some of our partners, and to run on this part, we have a work package on internationalization, because it's quite important for us to promote Sargassum issue internationally and through some legal studies, through advocacy, and through the building of a regional action plan. And well, to focus on some deliverable of the work package 2, we had conduct through Ligia Coladobiles assistance, which has done, in fact, this work for us, a white paper, which is named Navigating the Sargassum Crisis. And this white paper is, in fact, a decision-making tools. The idea was to disseminate all the issue regarding Sargassum, but in an appropriate and affordable language for a decision maker, in order for them to have appropriate decision making. And 7 thematic sections have been analyzed by Ligia teams through this white paper. So the question of biological characterization of Sargassum, the question, for instance, of movement of Sargassum, of, as I was saying, environmental, health, and socio-economic impact, the question of legal and governance consideration, collection management, valorization, and a specific part was dedicated to integration and synthesis. But what is very important to underline is that this tremendous work is the result of 554 paper synthesized since 2011. So it has been a very huge scientific literature review of what is going on Sargassum. And well, this is the first tool that has been addressed in this way in order to be used by all the actors of Sargassum in the region, but also basically by the decision maker. And
Ligia,
we have,
if you can shorten, I
yeah.
hate to do that. Ligia, sorry. With key deliverables that can serve West Africa, and then we're gonna pass to solution. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I didn't really understand what you said, Melanie. Just going to pinpoint this deliverable and to end with it. We think that it's quite important to conduct awareness campaign. So we had published a little book dedicated to children aged 6-12, which is named La Classe Verte Sargassum Hunt. And this is an innovative pedagogical tool, in fact, to raise awareness on Sargassum, to build environmental resilience, to showcase the Caribbean's collective response to the crisis, and to connect, in fact, school curricula to real world ecological challenges. So we think that we're going to reach about 5,000 children around the region through this book, which is in both language, French and English. And we are going to disseminate it basically to the ECS countries through the digital format. So this is the few words that I can make on the two deliverables that may give inspiration to West Africa on the question of Sargassum. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lydia. And I hope you can also share the tools on the class vert with the colleagues in the room.
Yes. Just going to, sorry, to get out from my screen. I don't know why I cannot do that.
Maybe, Edita, you can share your screen. We can see if it erased this one. Fantastic.
Thanks.
Over to you.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, first of all, for Global Seaweed Coalition to contacting us, for the interest and inviting us to share some of our experiences, of which most of them are completely new. So my name is Edita. I'm a marine biologist from a local organization in Santiago, Cabo Verde. But just before I start, I would like to mention that this is teamwork, as we say in Cabo Verde, of various organizations. And first of all, our technical and scientific partner, which is University of York. It would not be possible to do any work basically without them, because we are not researchers and academics. There are also national institutions like National Institute for Agricultural Development, local universities, and of course, the key groups in our project is local associations and local community groups, and especially women from two communities of Moya Moya and Praia Baixo. So before we start, I'm sure everybody knows, just to remind where archipelago of Cabo Verde is. It's a little bit north from Ghana and some 550 kilometers west from Senegal. And we are based in Sotavento, South Islands of Cabo Verde, in the capital island of Santiago, with the head office in capital Praia. And we work with two communities of Moya Moya and Praia Baixo on the east coast of Santiago Island. So very briefly, EcoCV, the full name is Cabo Verde Ecotourism Association, but we do different types of projects and activities, from community development, which is focused on agroecology, waste recycling, focus on plastic and glass, also marine and coastal research, conservation, and participatory monitoring. And over the last few years, we got involved with this amazing world of seaweed. My background is in whales and dolphins, so you understand. Me and my colleagues, we had to learn a lot about agriculture and also about the biology, ecology, and so on about seaweed. So we are on the big, beautiful journey with that. So just to notice with regards to Sargassum, already in 1945 in some colonial books and papers, it was mentioned some references to some works from 1881, which mentions the Sea of Sargassum, and also the presence of Sargassum in Cabo Verde archipelago. Later on, the same author describes the potential uses of Sargassum, for example, in agriculture, and it mentions that they don't transfer diseases, and we also don't permit the development of larvae and insects, also for the extraction of iodine and other chemicals. So back in 45, we already had information on potential of Sargassum and other seaweed. Unfortunately, nothing has much progressed since when. And I think only over the last 5 years, the interest continues to grow. And I will explain why as well. So EcoCV has been doing the coastal monitoring for blue carbon ecosystem like seagrasses, corals, and others around Santiago Island since 2019. And of course, we observed some Sargassum floating at sea or maybe in some beaches, but it was never a question of concern. And in October 2022, then we did some surveys in the Bay of San Francisco on the southeast coast of Santiago Island. That's what we found. And it was the first bells ringing. What should we do and what's happening? Because it was not only that we were covering the coral platforms, but we also were bringing lots of trash, as you can see in some photos. And then another location of Praia-Baixo, later on in a year, it was also Sargassum. And when we started diving, we observed also red seaweed that was mixed with Sargassum and of course with macroplastics and so on. And that's when we started looking for solutions. What should we do? Because in Cabo Verde, we did not have neither knowledge what to do, nor how to manage, nor how to use it. And through common friends, we found some new friends in the University of York, Thierry and Leo, that I know are present at this webinar as well. And then jointly, we started thinking what to do. We had good experience in the Caribbean, working with Sargassum and other seaweed. And one of the ideas I will explain later on was related to biostimulants. Just to show some more pictures, what is happening. And because, as I said, the first concern for me as a marine biologist was ecosystems, basically marine ecosystems as corals and seagrass and so on, because we are covering completely, and you know that if you reduce sun penetration, corals increases the bleaching and potential death as well. So yeah, and after that, if not removed, we continue staying on the beaches and rotting and releasing gases and so on. That after that, when we started talking to the local communities, of course, we have been experiencing the flu-type symptoms and sometimes irritation on the skin and so on. So it wasn't anymore only ecological issue, but also the social issue, which up till then wasn't actually known in Cabo Verde, that the seaweed could cause such challenges. And then at the beginning of 2024, Leo and Thierry first visited Cabo Verde with a funding from York University. We collected some samples and so on, and that's how the story started. And then we decided to develop a larger scale proposal. And then it was funded. Then came December 2025, which was basically the largest influx or beachings or whatever you call of Sargassum in the history of Cabo Verde. We talked to the local national sea institutes with local community members. Nobody heard, nobody knew about such a huge quantities. But basically with Santiago Island was affected the most. But we also registered in Mayo Island and Fogo and Brava Island, mainly in the south of the archipelago. So it reached such a level through our communication as well, that the government of Cabo Verde in December issued the communication about the invasion of Sargassum, and we also shared with them some guidelines that we translated from the Caribbean examples, what can be done, how to manage, how to remove. Unfortunately, the measures weren't taken that fast. It took like several weeks instead of like several days. So all these tons and tons were basically rotten. We chose two locations for the depth transect and relative biomass estimation using the Small and colleagues publication, which was developed for Barbados. And we estimated that in several small beaches, it was 186 to over 100 tons. And just to say that in Caribbean countries and Mexico, you have like really long, beautiful beaches. Here, our beaches are very small and the width is very small. So whatever comes to the beach, it just keeps on piling up, and you can see that in some cases the height of the pile of Sargassum was up to 73 centimeters. And so yeah, it's like was rotting, and another one was coming and building up. So in some cases, we basically lost the beaches. In addition to the joys of Sargassum, we also have the proliferation and blooms of red seaweed, which is Polysyphonia. And this year we started monitoring with a drone, and it seems to be quite effective. So I think when Sargassum comes, we will try to do similar with the Sargassum as well. And this one as well is good because if you do also underwater surveys, you can more or less estimate the level the depth underwater of the layer of the algae as well. So possibly in the future, somebody can find a methodology to estimate potential biomass, just simply from the pictures as we have. And so back to the project, which was funded by the Gates Foundation and started in 2024. It's a 2-year project, and we are going towards the end. So the focus is 3 species of the seaweed. And the main objective when we talk about the valorization of the seaweed and Sargassum in Cabo Verde, we have 2 components. So one component is technical, to produce biofertilizers or biostimulants, and another one is empowerment of local rural women. So it has social and agricultural or environmental. Now, before I start, I will be using simultaneously biofertilizer and biostimulant, because even the concept of biofertilizer is new in Cabo Verde. So now we have to think like very hard how to introduce that concept of a biostimulant, because we work with local farmers. So it's the communication, it's understanding what 2 types of the liquids do, basically. So yes, so as I said, the social component is very strong, women empowerment as well, and we work with that with IESI, the Institute of Environmental Sustainability of York. And the first step was basically to train local women how to enter into the water. Because even if we work at the local communities, some of them do not swim. Some of them had fear to put their face into the water. So that was a challenge, but now we have like a proper sea woman, they can snorkel and so on, and they have no issues with that. And of course, we are small local NGOs, so another important objective for us was to introduce participatory monitoring, so that it's not only our team that goes there like every single week to see what seaweed is there, but also the women from the communities. So we adapted the protocols, data sheets, and so on. And basically now every week or twice a week, we go to the coastal zones and we collect information on the presence and absence of the seaweed. And just to mention that our Sargassum comes with a lot of mainly plastic trash. So before we start processing after that, it has to be clean, of course, from macroplastic. Microplastics, it's impossible. So I'm sure some of that remains. So just to some data from the monitoring of last year, you can see that we have Sargassum at the end of a year and at the beginning of a year. And throughout the year, we have a domination of the red seaweed, which was later identified as Polysiphonia. And the red seaweed is basically all year round. When Sargassum comes, somehow it's pushed a little bit offshore or goes to the bottom. Then Sargassum disappears, Polysiphonia starts beaching on the local beaches. So now about the process of valorization and what do we do. So just to mention that we have a manuscript in preparation led by University of York, and Thierry and Leo are here. You can ask them about that later on. But basically, we adapted methodology from here, the reference to the published paper, and the process is very simple. And since very beginning, we said if we want to kind of process the seaweed, it has to be extremely simple that local community members can do it without the very sophisticated labs and so on. And fortunately, there is a methodology for that. So basically, we collect the seaweed, we use it fresh or dried. We heat it at a certain temperature in seawater, then we take it out, we rinse it with the fresh water, and then we just heat it in the fresh water. And when it comes out, we sieve it, and so the liquid that is there, it's biostimulant or biofertilizer, and then there is a remaining biomass. So with the remaining biomass, first of all, we tested as part of our agroecology program, we tested composting, and it worked very well, but it was like an open composting methodology, and unfortunately it required lots of water. And it wasn't very efficient in Cabo Verde because you know that Cabo Verde has deficiency of water. So unless we develop some kind of like a closed composting system, for now we just left it as it is. And we also, of course, what do you do when you have like lots of dried sargassum? We also tested producing the bricks, and we did some like soap holders and even vases with the recycled glass sand, because we also have an eco center that recycles plastic and glass. So it works really well. The bricks basically can be done, but mainly for pedestrian use. I think technology needs to be adapted. It wasn't our top priority, so we just like tested. We showed that it works. If somebody wants to pick up or we secure more funding, we can continue. But for now, the main focus is biofertilizers or biostimulants. And so we did it. We started already talking, introducing to local community members, and started doing some tests. So now testing functionality. We did in several phases. In the phase 1, you can see above, we tested different concentrations of liquid seaweed derivative. So we had 25, 10%, 0%, which was just water, also animal manure. And first we tested in boxes in the 2 communities, and we like to see for comparison how it grows. So here there are some results. For example, the results were quite different in between 2 communities. But for example, in Moya community, we found that 10% biostimulant gave the best results for the yield or quantity of tomatoes that we collected in the end, while in Praia-Baixo, the best result was for 25. Again, to say that there are like lots of variables that affected the growth of tomatoes. First, of course, it was in boxes, it was different condition, potentially it was different soil. Plus we have different pests, from sparrows to insects to rats and so on. So the growth was really uneven, and I think at that stage the comparison was, it's a bit difficult, but at least we knew like what more or less worked. So for the second phase, we started testing testing the seaweed liquid in natural conditions in agricultural plots in the Moya community. And we had 25, 10%, 0% just water, manure, and we also tested deep layer planting. So we basically spread the dried sargassum more or less 25 centimeters into the ground, and we planted corn and tomatoes on top. And so basically the preliminaries, sorry, just to repeat, it wasn't 25, it was 5%. So just to show some results for the tomatoes, for example, then we compared the final yield from our plots. We found that 5% application of the 5% of liquid gave the highest quantity of tomatoes. With corn, we compared the drying corn grains just after the collection, and we found it was like 5 and 10% that gave the best result. And now at the moment we are in the 3rd stage. So basically we're repeating once again with the similar concentrations, just to see like variability to compare with the phase 1. And also we've got the interest from other communities of Castellan and Bahia, where farmers also were interested to test the seaweed liquid. So where we simplified the application, and we are basically doing with, for example, 5% liquid and nothing, as farmers as just via fertilizing with their chemicals or manure or whatever they have. And interestingly, it seems that biostimulant is working. Plants are growing faster. They started blossoming first, and some are producing fruits. So the quantitative data will come later on, because we are still in the main bloom. And of course, then we had the fruits and roots. We collected the samples of leaves, of roots and stems, and of course the fruits of tomatoes. This is after the 1st phase, and we sent everything to University of York. And thank you very much to Thierry and Leo that we're grinding and preparing and testing and analyzing all of that. And the basic results from several tests that have been done came out as well, that the liquid itself, we managed to reduce the arsenic and other heavy metals levels in the seaweed liquid, that was safe to apply on the crops. And also testing the soil elemental composition, it was showed that it wasn't high concentration, it was permissible concentration, so it didn't affect the soil quality. Also the tomato composition, nutritional composition with some elements was also satisfactory. So basically, in the end, we concluded that with regards to the heavy metals and arsenic and so on, our tomatoes grown with the help of the seaweed biostimulants were safe to grow. And so we had like lots of tomatoes. So what do? So our women in the community started drying them because we have like a high and low seasons of tomatoes. And when the high season comes, it becomes really cheap. So it's better to process. And also we started doing some tomato sauce and paste. Most of them is already sold. So I think we have a market for that. And if we introduce and market the more biological version, I think it's even better. And I think to be careful, but I think the process and the biostimulant works. So we need to continue, because like we answer one question, but we have 10 more questions that arise from the whole process. So we need to do repetitions, we need to do more analysis and so on. But yeah, this is the first time that we are doing this in Cabo Verde. So basically we have to even facilitate all the management and monitoring process, then potentially on the certification process and so on. But there is interest from national institutions as well. So I think we are on a good path. So thank you very much, and later on for the questions.
Thank you very much, Edita. It's very inspiring what has been done in Cabo Verde, and we were impressed, and we are glad to share to a larger group today. We don't have much time for questions, so I will pick the first two that are listed before the Ghana colleagues take the floor. I have a question from Bernice. Is the sargassum collected from the shore or in the water before landing? And then I ask this, yeah.
Okay, so Sargassum is collected mainly in the water. We started to collect on shore, but then on shore it's usually mixed with much more plastic and also with sand. So we need to wash and clean much more. While you saw in some pictures, we developed like very simplified nets. And if a woman go into the sea up to their waist, it's very easy. You just go around and like within like few minutes, you collect like kilos and kilos of the sea.
Okay, and then a second question. What do you do with the water used to rinse sargassum?
Yeah, so that's one of the issues. So at the moment, like initially we were preserving them in some containers, but at the moment after the consultation with the York team, we basically take it closer to the sea, where we had like old sand extraction sites, and we just like basically pour into the sites, and like through the filtration it goes back to the sea eventually.
Okay, so there is a mechanical filtration before it goes back to the sea.
Yes, I'm sure that's the process where we need to improve, and if there are any examples, we would be more than happy to learn from them.
And do you observe salt content in the biostimulant?
No, like with the final product, then after the rinsing and heating again, like the salt concentration was really low, so it doesn't affect. And even after the rinsing, for example, we didn't observe any impact on the soil or the plants or something like that. We also measure pH and humidity and so on. I didn't mention that because it's too many, but it wasn't like any kind of like a deviations from normal, like a control size.
Okay. Thank you, Edita. We don't have time to answer all the questions. If you want to put your email in the chat in case there is people that want to support this project further, because it's coming to an end from what I understood, please contact Edita, and I'm sure she will be happy to continue the work there.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, over to colleagues in Ghana that are also valorizing sargassum in biostimulant and biomaterials. George from the OIC International, I let you share your screen.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, George. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So do you have it now?
Yes.
Let me stop it here. You have it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all. Yeah. So I have the opportunity to present for Ghana. My name is George Dogbeto. I'm a WASH practitioner with environment background. As indicated earlier, seaweed is not a new thing, but in Ghana, seaweed has been with us. The invasion of the invasive Sargassum seaweed was first sighted in Ghana in 2009. Then along the way in 2011, Ghana began seeing the accumulative of unusual seaweeds, and that was around in the western region and central in the western region. But in 2018, that is 2018, western region experienced the biggest or the largest Sargassum accumulation, and that triggered public attention, and that became part of that became a concern for the community, and many thought that it was the activities of the oil companies. So the oil company engaged OIC to look into the activities of Sargassum seaweeds, because it was almost like a border between the communities and the oil companies. So in 2018, OIC started with these activities, but we realized that the spread of the Sargassum seaweeds was more than around 75 communities along the coast. And so when we started, we engaged 150 individuals in these activities. But then being at the coast, about 80 to 90% of these people we engage, individuals, were women. Obviously, along the coast, the occupation is fishing. So the men usually will engage in that. So we had most of the women coming up to be part of these activities. Then when we went on, we were able to, in total, collected 70,500 Sargassum seaweeds from the environment. And this is what we used for the valorization activities. Within the communities, we had one community in the western region called Ahombre, where we had women organized and to be engaged in the collection, drying, and the sales of the Sargassum seaweeds. And they use that mostly to support their livelihood. The sale of the dried and sale of the activity, the seaweeds, was basically among the women, and we weigh and buy that at 1 Ghana cedis, and that is less than $1. And mostly what we engage these seaweeds, when we take them to use, we mill them and we use it as organic fertilizer, which we call the Sargaffet. The Sargaffet became the bedrock of our activities when we started engaging. And like I said, the collection and drying and sales of the seaweeds became a household business for these women. And as said earlier, engaging 80% of them were women. And like I said, in the fishing community, the men are engaged in fishing activities. So they do not have much of the time to do that. So we began with the Sargassum, that is composting the Sargassum seaweeds as manure to be used for vegetable cultivation. So we started with the compost. We had only Sargassum. Then we had Sargassum seaweeds with wood shavings. Then Sargassum with rice husk. So if you look at the picture on A, labeled A, the label A was with no application of Sargassum or Sargassum-based component. And B, we had Sargassum with wood shavings. The picture label C is Sargassum mixed with rice husk. And D is the Sargassum only. So the field activity we carried out with Sargassum only, we saw that there was some potential with the one on the Sargassum only. So the crop we used was sweet pepper and garden eggs. And this is for the garden eggs. A, like I said in earlier, A is without any application, and B is with Sargassum and wood shavings, same as C as Sargassum with rice husk, and the D is Sargassum only. So we saw the potential in that, and with that, all this we did in-house. So after being convinced that the Sargassum could have some positive impact on the crop, we went ahead to engage the Department of Food and Agriculture, and through their agric extension agents, we selected 150 farmers across 13 communities and provided with technical support to begin to use the Sargassum to engage in their farming activities. So we supported them with vegetable seeds, okra, and maize, and 2 bags of Sargassum, milled Sargassum manure. It was raw manure, and the 2 bags, each bag is 20 kilograms. And the pictures over there, down there, you can see the seaweeds being distributed to the farmers, and the crop seeds also given to the farmers. Now, whilst we engage in that, the extension officers, agric extension officers, we did the monitoring activities with them. But technically, they engage in so much. But on the field, we realized that there were visible evidence or signs that where we have, so the picture on your right, on your left, you see that plot with Sargassum seaweeds and plot without Sargassum seaweeds. You see that the plot with Sargassum seaweeds had evidence of growth and greening. So that gives us the support that the Sargassum seaweed could have more impact on the crop. So we went ahead, and whilst we harvested the crop, we went ahead and gave the result to CSIR, and the CSIR, and our objective was to determine the effect of this, the use of Sargassum as organic fertilizer on the crop. So all the analysis done was by CSIR, and they are here to tell us the result of the activities. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah.
Can you all hear us?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. All right. Please move to the next slide. Okay. So prior to the OIC project, DSR had also been working on a different project, the Sea Biogas project, which was between 2015 and 2019. So we did some toxicological analysis of the raw Sargassum and to know its nutrient composition and then its heavy metal levels. in order to characterize the seaweed and know what was in the seaweed and how we could valorize it. So these are nutrient data from these towns, about 7 towns, yes, in the western region of Ghana. And then you can see the nitrate levels, the sodium, the crude protein, the potassium levels. Please, the next table. And then the next table. Okay, so these are some heavy metal levels in the seaweed that we found. And you can see that most of the towns, the arsenic levels were very, very low, below the limit, because arsenic is between 5 to 20. But then in most of the locations, the arsenic levels were low, except for Shama and then Komenda. Only 2 locations had high arsenic levels. So these are what we found during the Sea Biogas project. Next slide. Okay. So when the OIC brought the maize and then the okra samples to our lab, we tested them, and then there were about 34 samples of both okra and maize from different locations. And out of the 34, 16 were okra and then 18 were maize samples. And then we analyzed them for their toxicological levels and then the micro and macronutrients. Okay, so this is a protocol that we followed for the heavy metal analysis. This is something that is already in literature, so we will not really go into details. There's a table that we would show you for the wavelengths that were used to analyze the heavy metals in the seaweed. Okay. So next slide. So basically, when we did the analysis, the proximate analysis with the okra and the maize, so these are the okra and the maize that were grown with the Sargassum seaweed as fertilizer, and then we found the ash content, moisture levels, the crude protein, the crude fiber, the carbohydrate levels of the crops, which were quite reasonable, you know, showing that they were growing well with the Sargassum fertilizer. Next slide. And then, so these are heavy metal concentration levels in the vegetables which were grown with the seaweed. And you can see that all of the levels were really, really low in terms of their heavy metal levels. Next slide, please. And this is more data on the heavy metals, the mercury levels, the arsenic levels. They were all very low, and some were even below detection limits, so they did not record any values, as you can see. So these results show that the okra and then the maize samples that the OIC brought to the CSIR lab were safe for consumption. So the Sargassum manure is is a good thing. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. So as indicated, what we saw on the field, yeah, we went ahead and also had a confirmation from CSIR. And before we got to the manure, we had done several innovation with the Sargassum seaweeds. And we wanted to find a sustainable solution to the influx of the Sargassum seaweeds at the shore. So so we came up with a solution with the bricks. We saw that this is something that the community can easily go along with, and also use it to solve the community problem, because sanitation is one of the challenges that OICI was also trying to intervene with the communities, and open defecation became a challenge. So these are communities who do not have toilet at home, or even toilet in their various homes. So we saw that the seaweeds, we could use it for something, the bricks, we could use it for something else. And when we did that, we also zeroed on the bricks. But then what we came up with was to find out how we can develop the bricks. So this is what we did. We had 40 kilograms of male Sargassum, 4 wheelbarrows of laterite, then 1 wheelbarrow of fine clay. The fine clay was used as a binder, and this will produce the interlocking bricks. We took the bricks to CSIR department section of Building and Roads Research Institute to also evaluate the properties of the Sargassum-based bricks. Specifically, we were looking at the compressive strength, water absorption, and the thermal resistivity of the bricks. Let me say that the result was not positive, but then the result was not positive that could be used for any standard building. So we wanted to still find a solution with the bricks within the community. And we know that the fishing communities, the women mostly use oven. So we started with the construction with a fish smoking oven. And those are the samples that we have over there. And this fish smoking oven, we had it fitted with a fat collector. The fat collector is a mechanism to reduce the smoke, which the women also suffer a lot. So far, we have about 200 ovens constructed, benefiting these women. But then, whilst we went on, like I indicated, open sanitation was also a major challenge, and we wanted to find out how we could also help the community with our households with dignified sanitation solution. So we went ahead and adopted the biodigester household toilet system. So the whole idea was to have the superstructure being used by the bricks, and the substructure is the biodigester system, which is a standardized system or acceptable system being used. And for us to look at it as to have a test of time and against the weather too, we decided to cement the outside part of, or the exterior part of the bricks, so that it could also stand the weather and a test of time. But inside, we wanted to maintain it so the community could also appreciate that it is out of the seaweeds that we had their toilet facility. So anytime they see the bricks, they appreciate the valorization of the seaweeds, of the Sargassum seaweeds, and wouldn't want to now begin to see it as a challenge. So that is basically what we did. And this is the final structure of the toilet facility. We had it for about 11 households in the same community, and we wanted to do more. We see that seaweed valorization has a great potential in Ghana, but then Ghana lacks the policy and the regulatory framework for now. So, and there's limited awareness and community engagement on seaweed valorization. Much is not being talked about. Little do people know about, and limited investment in terms of technology and for processing. And we think that when these things are given attention to, then we can scale the valorization of Sargassum seaweeds in Ghana. We want to acknowledge the Global Seaweeds Coalition. We want to acknowledge Melanie, Dr. and Dr. Amadou, Dr. Ediko, for their immense contribution for us to be able to get here. Let me say that we are not scientists, and this has been the contribution, and Seaweeds Coalition has given us the platform to be able to deliver this. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, George, Ayesha, and Professor Gloria. We have interesting questions in the chat, and it's good we have time to answer them. Maybe I will start with the one from Ligia. Or maybe Ligia, you want to ask your question? Sorry.
Got the microphone. I couldn't find the microphone. I just want, first of all, congratulate. This is an amazing thing, hands-on and helping people. So all of the toilets and everything. The only concern that I have, and there is a lot of for us in the Caribbean to learn as well, and share that level of experiences with the bricks, etc. My concern is some of the techniques to eliminate arsenic is to wash it with water, etc. So if before you are going to do the sample analysis of the samples, either of the leaves, the fruits, whatever the roots, and you pre-wash the sample, you're already taking away the arsenic. So that measurements can be a little bit misleading in terms of accumulation of sargassum. So at least here we have been growing things as well, and they accumulate sargassum in some cases. In other cases, if they pre-wash the sample, they do not find it. So that's my only concern, because through time it can accumulate. Thank you.
You mentioned accumulation of sargassum, but I guess you were meaning accumulation of arsenic, Ligia.
Sorry, yes, arsenic. Thank you, Melanie. Arsenic and another kind of heavy metal.
Can I come in for OIC?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say that the sample for our manure was raw sargassum that we picked on from the sea. We didn't wash, and we applied it. So we wanted to find a simple solution that the community could also adopt into and take up and use, because we have a mix of occupation, the fisher folks and the farmers. So we wanted a simple solution. So we didn't go through any addition of chemical or any other thing.
You want to react?
Sorry, Melanie, just the question is, in the lab, the people that were doing the measurement, the chemical analysis for the toxicology. So in the lab, the sample before it was measured, it was washed in acid, pre-washed in acid and water. So that. Thank you, George. My question is more for the chemical process.
Yes, it was not washed, but the samples were digested in acid directly. Is that okay?
Okay.
It was
Yeah, I
digested
think.
in acid prior to the analysis, but it was not washed in acid. So we
Not
can
washed with
the
water.
water. But what we have learned from the field is that over the years, we know that our seawater contains very little of heavy metals and pesticides. So the seaweed that arrives do not accumulate heavy metals in the water. It accumulates when it interacts with the sand at the shore. So like the Cape Verde experience, we prefer to collect it direct in the water, or immediately it comes to the shore. If you leave it in the sand for a long time, then it accumulates the heavy metals.
Ligia, you want to comment, or that answer your question?
Well, we have been measuring in different areas and also in the middle of the ocean. So sargassum is a sponge that even in the water, so the ocean has arsenic, naturally, it has arsenic. So there is arsenic in samples collected in the water. And that is why we have some of those concerns. And there is a lot of publications about that. So maybe, Melanie, maybe we can have some conversations later on, so we don't take the time. But that is some of our concerns that we can share about it.
Let's let them continue.
Philippe, you had a question, or I continued with question in the chat?
You can continue with the question of the chat. We will discuss later on with Ligia about, of course, some explanation about the differences between the two sides of the ocean, Atlantic Ocean. So, but it's much more scientific discussions. Yeah.
Okay, we can stay for debrief. Did you measure the same question, the salt accumulation, George? Because you mentioned that you were using the sargassum directly on the crop. Did you have concern with that?
Yeah, we didn't do that. We didn't measure any aspect of. We wanted a solution that the community could do without any external support. So the farmers were given directive as to how they will apply the quantity and how they will apply it around the crop. So that is the only thing, so that it will not have direct contact with the plant because of the salt content or the level of salt in it that could affect the plant the way.
Okay. And then it was a question on the toxicity for women. I guess it was while collecting. So how do you protect the population while collecting the sargassum?
Okay, yeah. So we just as I mentioned, over 150 women, we took them through health and safety, personal hygiene. So for them to go into that, we gave them the basic PPE equipment. That is all that we could do for now. We gave them the basic PPE equipment for them to protect the nose and the hand gloves that they could use. Apart from that, we didn't do any other thing.
Okay, then we have live question. The first hand raise is Isaac. Isaac, did you hear me? Okay, then Oscar, maybe you want to raise your question?
Yes, thank you so much, Melanie. And my brother George. I'm trying. I'll try use the most diplomatic language, but I think what you're doing is very dangerous to the health of the people, to the health of the soil there. I see you mixing terminologies, calling it manure, and I'd like you maybe to step back and do more research before you cause another problem from the problem that already exists to the blooms. The fear of arsenic is quite it's serious. Please don't take it lightly. There is also the fear of microplastics. So please take it into consideration and maybe collaborate with people who've done research before you just go dumping it on farms. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. But I think what Ghana is trying to solve is to find solution for the communities, because if you are doing nothing, you have toxic gas emission. So the objective of this webinar is to develop the research, to go further in this project, and to equip better the population that go harvest the seaweed, because anyway, they will be impacted one way or the other.
Yeah, Melanie, maybe as Melanie, sorry, as a follow-up, and I have been working with Sargassum from 2023. It actually took me to hospital 3 times because of the fumes emitted as I tried to digest it. And I appreciate the challenges that it has. We also have the same thing in Kenya. So I come from a place of also sharing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, of course, it's very important to equip yourself when you go to beach cast seaweed, but I think that was pretty clear from post-presentation. Okay, well, thank you everyone for sharing your knowledge. I think it was great to hear what's happened, at least 2 initiatives on what happened on with Sargassum in West Africa. We wish there is more work done in the area, more research, like it was just highlighted. So please contact us if you do work in West Africa related to Sargassum. If you have overview, we know that UNEP has led some work. And yeah, we want to continue support initiatives such as those.
Melanie, please, I have a quick question. Sorry.
Yeah, allez, the last question of the webinar. We have 1 minute, Isaac.
Okay, so I've been in, the communities, most communities that have been affected right from the central region to the western north of Ghana. and I've seen how these sargassum, how they are being affected. And I'll congratulate them for this wonderful, work that they've done. But I also want to know, because it's not every community that they've been able to touch, if there is a way we can, a means of engagement or communication to be able to reach out to these communities for them to know the good things that can come, or product that can be made out of this sargassum. I will be happy, because in my own capacity, that's what I've been doing, the community, and at the point they feel is a form of curse to them. But if we can have an engagement using local community centers and language that they best understand to, mention some of these things to them, then they will know that, yes, indeed, something good can be made out of the sargassum. So that's just what I want to put across. Thank you.
Thank you for this positiveness, Isaac. And indeed, that is the objective of doing such webinar, to replicate solution, to have them open source so it can be used in other communities. So please share the webinar link to others. And I'm sure George and the team have shared the email. So if you want to replicate what has been done, it's exactly the purpose of this webinar. Okay, we are running out of time. So thank you again, all of you, for joining. The speaker, you can stay online for a quick debrief if you like. And we see you next time. Bye.